Fellow test masters, and I don't think we have any guests today, but I want to talk about something that has been really important to me lately. It's leadership. What is leadership? And this is something, I think we grow up with this idea. Leadership is the guy who's in charge. He gets to tell everybody else what to do and gets all the perks. But I think there's a deeper way of looking at leadership. Now, one of our great leaders, who was a 5-star general during World War II and then later became president, was Dwight Eisenhower. And he said, I don't know really how to define leadership, but I know it when I see it. And that's something I think is true. It's very hard to define. The traditional view of leadership, I think people have a list of traits, and there's a lot of books and things. You can see libraries and bookstores full of all these books. A lot of times I'll give you these different traits. This is what a leader should do, and this is how they should behave. This is the tool, the habits they should have. And I think they miss that. And I recently got this book, The 9 Natural Laws of Leadership. And this is interesting because I'd heard this takes a different approach at looking at leadership. It actually takes a scientific approach, and I'm a scientist, so I'm sort of drawn to that view. And they actually look at it in terms of like physics, and instead of just trying to list all these traits and things that are common or seemingly uncommon, they look at it in the quantum physics and try to break it down to really tiny bits. And when they did this, they found 9 universal laws, natural laws in this case. And I'll read them off to you here. The number 1 is leader has flowing followers. The second one is leadership is a field of interaction. The third is leaders use influence beyond their formal authority. That's interesting idea. Also, leadership occurs as an event. And the 5th one is leaders operate outside the boundaries of organizational boundaries. The 6th, leadership involves risk and uncertainty. The 7th, not everyone will follow a leader's initiative. 8th, consciousness, information processing capacity creates leadership. And the 9th, leadership is a self-referral process, processing information from an internal subjective framework. So there's all these laws here. I'm going to really focus on the first one here, and that's that the leader has willing followers. And again, when you go back to that sort of childhood view, you think, well, the person who's been appointed the boss, the king, the king sits on the throne, he's born into it, and he just tells people to do stuff, and they do it, and they give him whatever they want, whatever he wants, and he has power. It's really good, all the perks, all the great stuff. But really, a leader has to have followers, has to have allies. And the great leaders, like you think about Abraham Lincoln, one of our greatest presidents ever, he really needed followers. He's actually not a very successful politician, but in his early days, but over time, he gained sort of a feeling of what he wanted to accomplish, which was to preserve the Union. And he saw a problem, and he came out with his ideas about how important it was to preserve the country, because you had these different groups, slavery, anti-slavery, and they were fighting. And he said, they need someone who's strong, who will come up with that ultimate objective. We got to keep the country together no matter what. And even when half split away, he said, we're going to keep this intact. And he did whatever it took, and he got people to believe in him. And this obscure politician from Illinois got enough followers to get him the position of President of the United States. And then he got them to support him through a very difficult war where literally millions of people ended up dying. Really a difficult situation. He needed followers. Without the followers, he wouldn't get elected, he wouldn't be president. And even when you are elected, without having the followers, the allies, you're nothing. So it's really interesting, that concept, because I think the followers are usually second class. I said they're the peasants, they do the work. What they're neat, without the followers, you can't be a leader. And even if you're given a position of a manager, if your people will not follow you, they may do what they absolutely have to do, but if they don't do any more than they have to, you will never accomplish the tasks that you need to be done. So I really like that aspect. So when something you can do when you want to be a leader is think about who you can get to ally with you. Who is it that can support the objectives that you want to achieve? Get those followers before you take on this task, these risks that you want to take on. And then you'll find at least that part of it. So now there's other parts here too, which we can discuss another time. But I came up with a possible definition of a leader, and kind of from this and some of the other laws, and I wish I could talk about the whole book, but I only have a few minutes. But possible definition, to lead is to create a space where obedience to truth is practiced, to cast light upon the people that the leader serves. Again, the leader as a servant, not as a dictator. And to create a level of energy with those whom he associates. So you're building everybody up around you who can support you. The leader finds ways to draw out the gifts and the potential of the people around him. It's a lot more supportive, it's a lot more servant-ish, I think, than most people think. So I'm really interested in this book, and maybe I'll talk a little bit more about it in the future, and a little bit how our traditional view maybe isn't the best view of leadership. So think about this as you go through your daily lives. What is it being a leader? How are you a leader? Because we're all leaders in something, whether it's our family, our job, a group we're a part of, Toastmasters. Think about how you can be a leader, especially think about that first law. How can you get willing followers? Thank you very much.